And so being the desperate actor that I am, I was like, give it to me, give it to me.
I'm a really slow reader, really, really slow, but I read it in like a day or something, or a day and a half, something like that.
It's a topic that has affected me very closely.
Sometimes you can feel a vibration in Orkney. A low rumble. It takes over the whole island and every part of your body.
You know, Saoirse, I know that you were a producer in the film as well as starring in it. So I guess if you could take us right back to the origins of the film and what it was that kind of really stood out to you about the book and about the character.
So the book was introduced to me by Jack Lowden, who had it on his bookshelf for years, and when we were in lockdown, he finally read it. I think it was such an appropriate time to experience it for the first time as well, and he handed it to me straight away and he said, you need to read this because I think this is the next role that you should play. And so being the desperate actor that I am, I was like, give it to me, give it to me. I must read it. And I just loved it. And I think what I loved first and foremost is that we were following a young woman as she recovers from an alcohol addiction, which I just don't think is something that we really get to see very often in literature or on screen, but especially on screen. So I knew that that would be quite a unique take on a very universal story. It's a topic that has affected me very closely in the way that it has many other people. It was always something that I wanted to delve into. And I think the way in which Amy wrote about it, her sort of prose, the way that she chose to tell this story, which is so much more than just an addiction story. It's so wrapped up in memory and the sort of non-linear element that comes with the past. I found that really interesting, and if we could find a way to take that sort of poetry and to translate it onto screen, it could be something really unique and really special.
Yeah, definitely, and it definitely ended up being so. And then for you, Paapa, when you kind of came on board, what was it? Did you read the book first, the script first? How did you kind of become involved?
Yeah, I read the book before we started shooting, but and loved it. I think I actually read it. I'm a really slow reader, really, really slow, but I read it in like a day or something, or a day and a half, something like that. It's like a really compulsive, all-encompassing, it completely transports you. You know, the way Amy writes is so honest that you kind of can't put it down. But when I came on board, it was really after meeting Saoirse and Nora and talking about the ideas and ambitions for the project and the way that they imagined and envisaged executing it. It sounded like something that was super, super, super like specific and very different to anything that I'd done before, or a style of working that I'd had the opportunity to do. So that was really exciting for me.
Yeah, and obviously when it is a story which is, you know, so personal, and, you know, obviously Amy's involved, were there kind of conversations with her about exactly how to, you know, portray this story? Were there any kind of conversations early on or while shooting that were particularly helpful to you in kind of unlocking something and to, you know, kind of carrying that responsibility?
I think Amy had most of those conversations with Nora in terms of what the vision for the piece should be. I think it was really important to protect Amy's creative working relationship with each of us, and so for that to be sort of clear and something that we knew what our role was within that was really important. So for me, she was really wonderful at being there when I needed her, and also knowing when to sort of give me space as well. I think it was really important for her in her process of kind of handling the fact that a movie was being made about a very painful part of her life, that actually we did take some creative license and we developed the character even more so, and sort of it transcended beyond Amy in the book and became Rona, which was this sort of amalgamation of three women coming together to create something new. So it felt like this was the next stage in her journey as a creative, as a writer, and it was for us as well. I think one of the things she said to me that I found most interesting, especially about the recovery stage, when she's in rehab, is how emotional you are, how unbelievably vulnerable you feel, and the rawness of that is so on the surface at all times. So it meant that I kind of knew going into those scenes, which were very early on in the shooting, I knew how to sort of pitch that, I guess. So that was really, really helpful.
Yeah, and for you, Paapa, were there any conversations with anyone about, about being a support system for someone who is going through addiction? And did you have any kind of conversations with anyone about that, how that would kind of unlock how you played your character?
Yeah, for sure. I spoke to a few people who are more literally going through something that's comparable to what Daniel's going through, both in terms of like being, romantically connected to people, but also, like people's sons or people's brothers, sisters, whatever. I spoke to a few people like that, but I've also got my own personal experience of support in whatever way I can, friends and family members in similar situations. But kind of like what I was saying before, like the source material is so clear and so unflinching that. And also we were given, Saoirse right when she says that it never felt like trying to do a biopic where it was like doing an impression of someone or whatever. It always felt like a story and characters that existed independently, and we were given the space to create those characters.
Obviously, this is a very personal story for you, so. First of all, just have to ask how you went about finding the right creative collaborators, both in Nora but also in Saoirse Ronan.
The year that my book, The Outrun, was published 8 years ago, to my surprise, I got approached by a number of filmmakers interested in adapting it. And it was the letter that producer Sarah Brocklehurst sent me that really struck me with her vision of how the book could be adapted, and also that she wanted to include me in that process. That was 8 years ago, so it's a long old haul, and bringing the right team together, and that process really took a jump when Saoirse Ronan read the book and wanted to get involved. And it wasn't until after Saoirse was involved that we found Nora.
Yeah, and was that quite an easy project for you to then jump on board and say, yes, I want to be a part of this?
Yes and no. It was very appealing. Of course, the book was amazing, and working with Saoirse is, a gift for any director. But at the same time, it took a little bit to find the right vision, because the book is tricky to adapt. It's quite loose and internal, and it jumps in way more time layers than the film does. And the first half of the book, I thought it's unadaptable, But then the second half, it became more of this challenge, and how can we translate it and keep this sort of, almost philosophical aspect of the book, and not just make it a story about alcoholism, but about so much more.
How important was that to you to have those elements of kind of Orcadian folklore and stuff that are kind of weaved into the film as well? Was that something that was really kind of essential for you?
I knew that the film wasn't directly adaptable, because there is so much internal monologue and sort of factual journalistic material. So I knew that this somehow had to be replaced by a director's vision and by cinema. And when Nora went away and came up with a treatment of the film that included this part in particular called the nerd layer, which is the London layer, the Orkney layer, and the nerd layer, I really thought, yes, she's got it, because she's found a way that's not just focusing on the individual story and the family story, which would be one way of adapting the book, but allows room for something more literary or cinematic.
And in terms of the process of actually, shooting the parts of it in, big parts of it in Orkney, I imagine in some ways that's a dream for a director, because it's such beautiful landscape. But obviously, there would be challenges as well, the weather and everything like that. How kind of yeah, what was that process like? What were the highlights from shooting in Orkney?
Well, it's exactly like you said, you know, it's magical at the same time. It's very challenging. It was magical to film, you know, Saoirse going swimming and the seals came and they really came, you know, and these sort of gifts. But then it's also really challenging to get a film team on a tiny island where you can't even, you know, drive onto the island. But we made it work, and thanks to the local communities, we got a lot of support.
Are you particularly interested in the response from the Orcadian community as well? Have you kind of,
I with the book, I was suddenly it got a bit bigger than I thought it was going to, and I was nervous. But I must say that my experience has been that people have been much more generous and open-minded than I might have feared. People from all different walks of life, particularly when talking about, you know, wrong choices that I might have made and difficult things with my family. So, and I've had such support from the community with the book that I kind of feel the same for the film. I'm sure there'll be some people that it's not for them, but it's something new for the 21st century, bringing to the islands.
yeah, and even just seeing it on screen in this way, kind of, you know, really being spotlighted in cinema must be quite a good thing for the islands as well. Would you? Yeah.
Maybe, but I think anyone who knows Orkney will find a lot to recognise both places and people in the film.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, obviously you need to talk about Saoirse Ronan's performance as well, because it is incredible. What was there any moment from working with her, like a particular scene where you were just kind of, you know, captivated by something that she was doing, or you know, a choice that she made?
That's a tough question, because like working with her is so fantastic. She's so talented that, you know, every scene you film is sort of magical in a way. She has this unique how do you say, quality that even if she brushes her teeth, it's sort of interesting to watch, you know. I love the scene where she's raving in Rose Cottage, you know, and it becomes this physical exorcism experience almost. Or on the other hand, you know, there is a phone call that she has with her father, and he's in the psychiatry ward and accusing her of calling the police, and I think we had 7 or 8 takes, and each take was so different but so minimal and so moving. It was really amazing to watch her, you know, just being on the phone. I mean, yeah, amazing.
Yeah. How many conversations did you have with Saoirse before she started, you know, playing the role, and what were the kind of things that you particularly wanted to discuss with her?
Not so many, actually, just mainly a couple over Zoom. And I really feel that the thing that I've realised lately is that Saoirse, she's not doing an impression of me, but what she's channeling more is my writing and how I am in prose, and which is a sort of elevated, hyper-real version of myself. And to have her connect with my writing is a totally amazing experience.
Yeah.